Well, Friday edition of the Sports Cage. It's Maz and Dave Thomas in for Barney. We're live on the radio at 620 CKRM, and if you're listening on our app, thanks. If you're watching what we're doing, you can do that on X or on our YouTube channel. You can grab that by going to sportscage.com. The show on Fridays is brought to you by Nelson Homes, supplying home packages and RTMs for over 65 years. Busy show today. Devon Oleniuk, event chair for the MKT World Curling Championships in Moose Jaw, will join us in about a half hour's time. Farhan Lalji from TSN will be on just after 4. Now, one of the big bosses from TSN is leaving to become the commissioner of the CFL. So I want to ask Farhan, was he your boss? And do you know him? And what do you think is going to happen now that he's taking over the Canadian Football League? Just after 5, Luc Mullinder will be on. I always love Friday Luc, because you get Friday Luc, he's weekend mode. Maybe the kids are in the kitchen as well when he's on. Always loose, love it. And SJHL President Scott Blevins will also join the show. Dave, the baseball season's underway. The Blue Jays aren't anywhere near as bad as anybody predicted yet. Although the Toronto Blue Jays, and you could probably agree, if there was a World Series championship trophy given out for April and May baseball, the Toronto Blue Jays would be hands down the winner every year. No better team usually than the first 2 months.
No, usually it's the contrary. Usually they kind of stumble and they find themselves in a spot where they're almost out of it by the time July rolls around and they have to make a decision. Do we load up or do we go home? And, you know, I'm a big Jays fan, and it's to the point that it almost became to the same level as the Riders, where on a daily basis, my mood swings would be really dependent on how the Jays had done the night before. So trying to back myself off and ease those expectations.
I believe it's in the 6th inning in New York City. They're losing 2-0 to the Mets. But here's the crazy thing about baseball this year. They've gone viral. The kids, the millennials, the double C's. Oh, Curtis and Colson are on the show, by the way.
How do I reach these kids?
Okay, so there's a new trend that's called the 999 Baseball Challenge. 9 innings of baseball, 9 hot dogs, and 9 beer. Could you do it? I couldn't. Not a chance. You?
I could get close, but I think probably my undoing would be the 5th inning, probably. But when they have the Toonie Dogs at Rogers Center the last few times that we've been, we gave them a run for their money.
All right. That's our Twitter poll question today. You can go to our X account at SportsCage. 999 Baseball Challenge. 9 innings, 9 beer, 9 hot dogs. Yes, no, maybe, and you'd love to try it. Let's bring in our first guest, if he's ready to go. Jamie Neugenbauer, longtime play-by-play voice of the Notre Dame Hounds, joining us on the Western Pizza guest hotline. Jamie, I don't know your love of baseball, beer, or hot dogs. So on the 999, where would you fall in? Yes, no, or you'd like to try?
Look, I have a lot of things that I want to say about what you all just said there. I'm a Toronto guy. I used to live 10 minutes from the Dome. I didn't have seasons, but I was friends with someone who had seasons, so I would go all the time. And could I do 999? You know what? I think I have the frame for it, and I have the passion for those 3 things for it. So you know what? I'm going to go out and say yes. I could do it. And when I was younger, my brother and I visited my aunt who lived in Ottawa, the home of the Ottawa Lynx, when they were the Baltimore Orioles AAA affiliate, and they had 25-cent dogs, like literally 25 cents. And my brother and I, there was no beer involved, I don't think, but we had way too many hot dogs, but we managed it. So I'm going to say yes.
All right. Nuge in. So here's my thing. I think this all depends. First of all, it has to be some sort of light beer, like a Michelob Ultra or something like that, because I can't carb up. But the hot dog this is the linchpin. Is it a 7-Eleven type hot dog, a Circle K? Is it a Costco-esque dog? Like, how big is it? Is it a roasted barbecue hot dog, like from a campfire? Because they all taste different. I think that it all depends. There's a lot of factors here.
Yeah. That's a great point. And another factor for me, and I did some work closely with Big Daddy Dave on the road in the SJ a couple of years ago, and he may or may not remember that I am of the celiac nation. So another element would, of course, be that it would have to be gluten-free. So if it's like a gluten-free light beer, a small little dog, no problem. No problem.
And depending how long the 9 innings are, because you do
true.
not want somebody up mowing them down 1, 2, 3. Like we need some long, like we need the LA Dodger World Series 5th inning. Remember all that when it all kind of fell apart with the Yankees? Like we need,
Or the Jays and the Rangers back in the day there when Russell Martin threw the ball at the Texas Rangers batter's bat and everybody went ballistic.
Yeah. So let's talk hockey, Jamie. First of all, longtime broadcaster of the Notre Dame Hounds. The news comes out a couple months ago that the team would be moving to Warman. Now, obviously, there were some rumblings out there, but when it was finally announced, where were you emotionally when the decision was finally made?
Yeah, broken up. I had been party to the discussion, not the negotiations, of course. That's way above my pay grade, but the discussions. And I didn't think it would actually hit me as hard as it did because I had a little bit of a run up to it. But then certainly, the guys, the team itself were on the road in Flin Flon, believe it or not. So they told the players, in a cabin up in Baker's Narrows there near Flin Flon. You guys know the terrain, and the boys I think took it pretty hard, but I certainly was a mess probably for about a month just because of the relationships. Dave, this, being the voice of different teams over the years, you build those relationships, and especially these young men grow to love and care for them and have that opportunity to be close to them for years. So that part sucked. But I've kind of moved on a little bit, but I do appreciate the question though, because it certainly was crappy. But again, I appreciate Kyle McIntyre, the commissioner, and everybody, both keeping me in the loop and also reaching out and saying how you doing and whatever. Because even though we struggled as a team, you still have those relationships, and that's what it's all about.
So maybe that's the 2-part question that I'll throw your way a little bit, because I know that Warman really has gone the extra distance to welcome the team to the community, from bringing them to the rink to showing them what the facilities might look like. And having said all that, there's still the caveat that, hey, but this is contingent on corporate support. This is contingent on Warman City Council approval. This is contingent on a season ticket drive that is going to get underway here this month. So is this is 100% done deal? Like, we're not going to go back and say, well, it didn't work out in Warman. There just hasn't been enough support.
That's a wonderful question, Big Daddy Dave. And I have asked people, I said, what happens if they don't hit their, because if you guys don't know if you guys have reported on this, or people out there don't know, part of their messaging in Warman is we need to hit 1,000 season tickets sort of by May 15th, something like that. That's their target in order to gain full ratification of approval at Warman City Council. Now, there is no chance there will be a junior hockey team at Notre Dame next year. I know that for a fact, and what that would mean from a league perspective. I am the co-director of media for the SJHL as well, so I have the ear of not the ear of the commissioner, but I can talk to the commissioner, ask him these questions, and he said, it doesn't affect us. If the worst came to the absolute worst, I suppose they could run with 11 teams, but it would, I think they'll find a way to have hockey in Warman anyways. That's just a guess. But it's a great question, Daddy David. I know you know Kyle, and Maz, I know you know Kyle too. So if he gives you any more of a straight answer than he's given me, then I'd love to hear.
So they've obviously communicated to the players, right? Because these are developmental years for the players. So what's been their response and reaction to all of this? You mentioned it was an emotional time up in Flin Flon, but is their hockey future in doubt, in jeopardy moving forward? How has that been communicated to the players before they left?
Yeah, again, great question. So there's two things that the Warman ownership group actually bought, right? One was the license to run a team in the SJHL. There are 12. They got one of those licenses. The second thing that they bought was a list of players. Now, these players know, and Brett Pilkington, the coach and GM, who was the head coach and GM of the Hounds back since 2020, has been given a contract to be the head coach and GM in Warman as well, just for next year at least. And so he has communicated to all the players that if you're eligible to try out, you can maybe come to main camp and we'll see, but nobody has been given a spot But again, it's a case-to-case basis. Some guys, we had lots of American players. They want to be closer to home, some of them. Other ones, are sort of thinking about other options. And certainly many of them have communicated to me that they would love to try out. And we're really, as you mentioned there, Dave, impressed with the kind of the tour and the wining and dining that they got from John Abramitz, one of the owners there in Warman, when we did a tour before playing the Humboldt Broncos in Humboldt. So it's kind of a mixed bag to answer your question, Dave, but certainly the ones that are interested to play for Warman next year are big time excited for the opportunity to play in that venue, to play for that community, because I'm sure you guys know that community, and I do too. It's going to be an amazing time up there if they can kind of get this over the line.
Jamie Neugenbauer joining us in the Western Pizza Guest Hotline here on the Sports Cage. Now, you'd mentioned you're part of the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League, and you also, you work for the league. Round 2 of the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League playoffs kick off tonight. You have the Weyburn Red Wings in Flin Flon to take on the Bombers, and you have the Yorkton Terriers in Melfort to take on the Mustangs. First of all, let's start Weyburn Flin Flon. That's a grueling bus ride, and I don't know if I'd wish that on anybody. But yesterday, Weyburn would have hopped on the bus, and they're up in Flin Flon. Jamie, what are you expecting from this series? Because Flin Flon, we know they can score. They had the best goalie in the league. They can play physical. Where are the cracks for Weyburn to try and work their way in? And because on paper, this doesn't seem fair.
Again, it's a great question, and the Weyburn Red Wings, when they've been at their best, they have been as good as anybody in the league, and they have proven it against Flin Flon. They won 3 of 4 in the regular season against the Bombers. Now, that all being said, 3 of those 4 games were before the Bombers got Matthew Keeper. The one game that the Red Wings did face Keeper, they did beat him in Weyburn in overtime, and it was a great game in late January. So the Weyburn Red Wings can certainly skate with Flin Flon and Melfort. Now the question is whether they can defend with Flin Flon and Melfort, whether they can hit with Flin Flon and Melfort. Those teams have all the experience in the world. Weyburn has none of it, really, if you think about it. So that's the thing that I think will be the question that will have to be answered, is whether they can handle it. I don't know if you guys have been up at the Whitney when it's going bananas in Flin Flon. It is an avalanche for the hardest of hardened junior hockey veterans to deal with when the Whitney Forum is going bananas. They certainly have skill. They have the speed. And Ethan DK, of course, who's committed to Michigan Tech, he's as dynamic of a forward as anybody in the SJHL out of London, Ontario. He's a really skilled guy. They got Jerome Maharaj, who maybe is the best playmaker in the SJHL. They have the Rookie of the Year in Max Chakrabarty. They've got an elite goalie in Angelo Zoll. So Weyburn has the talent. It's whether the Weyburn Red Wings that can play big boy hockey, wear their big boy pants, show up and play the Flin Flon Bombers, because we know the Flin Flon Bombers will do that. Mike Reagan will make sure they do that, and we'll see. But either it'll be short or it'll be long, but either way it'll be entertaining, because both these teams can skate, and that's what you want to see.
And you look at the experience factor, Nugsy, in this series, and the fact that the Bombers have been there and the Red Wings are just starting to kind of get there. Are the Weyburn Red Wings playing with house money right now?
They don't see it that way, Dave. Again, great question, but they don't see it. They see themselves as big dogs. Great thing there, producer. Love that. You know what? They see themselves as big dogs. They have the talent. They had a lot of guys at the SJMJ Showcase in Winnipeg when the SJ All-Stars played the MJ. I think they're underdogs. A lot of sane people also think they're underdogs, but don't tell them that. Hey, you know what? They have to put their money where their mouth is, because the Bombers have proved it 3 years in a row that they got to the finals 3 years in a row. This would be their 4th if they can beat the Red Wings. So you gotta beat the best to be the best, as they say. And if the Wings can prove that, then they'll make a lot of believers. But right now, it's on them to prove it.
A more palatable bus trip is the trip from Yorkton to Melfort. That's like a walk in the park compared to Weyburn to Flin Flon. 2 really good hockey teams. They were great throughout the regular season, near the top of the class. So what do we expect? Yorkton, Melfort. If anything, would anybody be surprised if this automatically is a 7-gamer that maybe goes to overtime to decide it, because they're incredibly close?
I'd be surprised if it goes to 7 just because of the level of pedigree and respect that the Milford Mustangs have. Look, they have run over the SJHL this year. They didn't do it with the same type of flash and pizzazz that the Flin Flon Bombers did last year, running over the league. But this is the number 5 team as the CJHL rankings ended in Canada, and probably better than 5 if you take the algorithms out of the equation with the CJHL rankings. We can get into that another time. But look, this Milford Mustangs team is heavy. They have 12 guys, 13 guys that were in the Centennial Cup last year. They have a coach in Trevor Blevins, who's the reigning, SJHL Coach of the Year. He's, I see kind of both of these matchups almost as Darth Vader versus Luke Skywalker. In terms of the experienced guy, the Trevor Blevins and the Mike Reagan versus the younger guys in Emery Lawson and Cody Mapes coaching their teams and getting to this kind of rarefied air for the first time in the SJHL. So it's up to Luke Skywalker to prove it. And I'm sure if you were there during Star Wars, you probably weren't betting on Luke Skywalker either. To me, the Yorkton Terriers are kind of the Luke Skywalkers right now because they have talent. Sure, certainly there's that storyline of David Coyle and Tommy Reese on the Yorkton Terriers who were traded from Melfort during last year in a very good trade, but still, kids always want to prove that you were wrong to make that move. Am I right? That's true in pro. That's true everywhere. People want to prove guys wrong, and so David Coyle has been wonderful for Yorkton all year. On top of that top line with the forward of the year and Jaron Denoyer. So we'll see if those guys can generate offense. The defense really shut down the Melville Millionaires in the first round for Yorkton. I mentioned on the show, we were previewing the second round yesterday, that the Melfort Mustangs scored 49 more goals in the regular season than Melville. So it's a different beast, but still, there is talent in Yorkton. So again, they'll have to prove it. I think if Weyburn's an underdog and Yorkton's even more of an underdog. So, we will see. Melfort didn't lose to Yorkton in the regular season at all. So, again, it's a prove it, but the Yorkton Terriers have gone through a lot of adversity this year. We'll see if they can do it again.
Well, the story behind the series might be the fact that there's no room at the inn, right? The Yorkton Terriers don't have anywhere to stay in Melfort, so they got to bus in every night. But yeah. I know that Benny Walchuk would be tearing the seats out of the bus if he heard me even suggest this. But at the start of the year, to me, it seemed like the Yorkton Terriers were full sails ahead. And then all of a sudden they had that little blip where there was the paperwork error and they had to go ahead and forfeit those couple of games. And then they just kind of cruised, but they didn't seem to be leading the pack, if you know what I mean. Can you explain to me this series and I guess the season that the Yorkton Terriers have had to get here? Because to me, it's kind of like they were so far out in front and now they've kind of been pulled back.
Yeah, look, I mean, obviously, I guess I'm not a regular employee of Notre Dame anymore, but I can still use the struggle and emerge motto. The Terriers have had their adversity, right? I mean, you mentioned the forfeitures. You didn't mention the fact that probably their 2 best forwards, maybe 2 of their 3 best forwards left for the BCHL around the new year in Keenan Ingram and Dustin Renus. On top of that, they've had a lot of injuries. On top of that, they only have one 20-year-old defenseman, and he's not really a top 4 defenseman, with all due respect to Harrison Aldridge. So they've got very, very good young players, and that really bodes well for the future of the Yorkton Terriers. They've had overcome so much. But yeah, you know what? Emery Lawson and his staff, they deserve a lot of credit for getting this Yorkton team to where it is. The attendance in Yorkton has been unbelievable, like over 2,000 fans a game for the most part. I think part of that is the fact that the Terriers do play an exciting brand of hockey. I think there's something to say about winning and sustainable winning and yada, yada, yada. But if you play an entertaining brand that also brings people in, and also their ticket prices are probably as reasonable as anybody's in the league, which, I kind of like to see that when they're trying to start out from where they were, struggling financially a couple of years ago. But as an organization, they're so healthy. They're so well supported. And whatever happens in this series, they should be very happy to have Emery Lawson around. Now, to understand this series, they're going to have to score a lot. And that's not an easy thing. The Melfort Mustangs, they defend as well as anybody I've ever seen in the SJHL in my time since 2017. Like, this is a decor that has 4 20-year-olds that is, has 0 holes, that can skate, that can hit, that can score. They have every single thing you need to win a championship, this Melfort Mustangs team. My only question mark for Melfort is who's in net Christian Coombs? He won a game at the Centennial Cup, but is he healthy? Is it Madden Malaka, the potentially future Regina Pats goaltender? Will he step in or need to step in if he's healthy? That'll be the question mark only really for Melfort. And if they can get all their, tick all those boxes that they expect them to tick, I honestly don't think they'll have a hard time with the Orkin Terriers.
All right. Jamie Neugenbauer joining us in the Western Pizza guest hotline here. We'll wrap on this. You mentioned you're originally from Toronto, so I don't know. I may assume you could be a Leafs fan if you do cheer for an NHL team, but we'll leave that alone because you're in first place. Social media is on fire. Why wouldn't you be getting the cup this year? I mean, it's a foregone conclusion. I mean, listen, let's out west before you go. In your mind, you watch a lot of hockey. Any chance that the Flames or the Canucks can make a miracle comeback and catch either Minnesota or St. Louis to get that final wild card spot in the NHL?
You know what the problem isn't that those teams don't have quality, because they do. The problem is the teams in front of them. The problem is that it's such a grind. And you know what? I think, again, they've got a lot of heart, those teams. They got a lot of leadership, but it's just the amount of teams to climb over. Now, Dave, you did mention something too earlier that I do want to touch on, if you can forgive me for one moment. If you put your mental health on the Blue Jays, that is a big mistake, because they play so many games. You're just going to be up and down and losing your mind. It's amazing you have such incredible hair. That always blows me away whenever I see you, Big Daddy Dave. But look, the Blue Jays, let's enjoy it. They have a crazy bunch of series ahead full of torpedo bats. So hopefully they don't get hit with a bunch of torpedo bat dingers the next little while. But hey, we enjoyed them mauling the Washington Nationals, and hopefully they survive the next 9 series.
All right. We'll leave it there. The Blue Jays are your second week of Major League Baseball World Series champions. And probably the best thing to come out of this interview is Dave Thomas has a nickname, Big Daddy Dave, which I don't think will ever be going away after today's show. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll dive deeper into this NHL stuff. And Dave's nickname. We'll do that in just a sec. The Sports Cage is streaming on our website, on our YouTube channel at sportscage.com, and on the radio at 620 CKRM. The show is brought to you by Nelson Homes, supplying home packages and RTMs for over 65 years. It's Maz and Dave Thomas in for Barney today. Yeah, if you do want to get in on the Prairie Land Rentals text line, 306-936-6262. It couldn't be a better situation. Brad Jacobs, Team Canada, is 9-1 at the BKT World Men's Curling Championships, and Devon Oleniuk is joining us on the Western Pizza guest hotline. He is the event chair, and we'll bring Devon in here. Hey, Devon, how are you? Thanks for taking some time. Welcome to the show.
Really, really good. I hate to sound like that guy, but I've actually got 3 chairs that assist me, and we're under the direction of Maddie Kelly from Curling Canada. That's been outstanding to deal with.
Okay, so we're a couple days away from this all wrapping up. Take us back. How many years ago did this idea first pop up of, hey, maybe we should, or the idea first came up, you're going to apply all that? Because this just doesn't happen overnight. This is a process. So when did it start? When did you get involved?
It started a couple of years ago, but I personally became involved probably about 7-8 months ago when I got a call from Shauna Fritzler, who is the general manager here at the Temple Garden Center. And she asked if I'd be interested in being one of the vice chairs for this event. And it sounded like an outstanding opportunity and obviously a fun and rewarding experience. So I jumped at it.
Having had the opportunity to have been there earlier this week, I will tell you a little bit about my beef in a second. But first, hats off to the volunteers. What a well-run, well-organized event. And you can just feel the community pride oozing as soon as you get into that facility. So what kind of volunteers do you have? How many are on site? Because I can't imagine that undertaking.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your feedback on that. It is absolutely outstanding. It is awesome to be working in an environment where everybody is so involved in a positive way and everybody's pulling on the rope the same way. So the structures I talked about earlier, it's Curl Canada, then us 4 chairs, then we have about 20 directors that we oversee, and then the directors oversee another 350 volunteers that are spread out in numerous tasks throughout the building. And some of those tasks are very specific. For example, the timers and the statisticians, those are local people that when you're watching the game on TV and you see the stats on shooting percentages and things of that nature, those are local people that are working with both Curl Canada and curling, World Curling to develop those results. And those are specifically high-trained people to do those tasks. So then on the other end, we have a lot of people that are just doing such things as youth engagement. And in the youth engagement part, we partnered up with numerous schools in southern Saskatchewan. We brought in close to 4,000 kids on the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and exposed them to the game. And really on that end of the scale, it is just all about building blocks for the kids. A lot of these kids have never been in an arena before, and even for the teachers even commented that how cool it was that they even see inside the rink, are exposed to curling, but even basic learning fundamentals on how to find your seat and find your way around through busy quarters and be part of the experience was just wonderful.
Now, when I moved to Moose Jaw back in 1993, it's definitely different than Moose Jaw in 2025. You're welcoming the world. What has the response been from the teams and the officials, from everyone who's come in? Because if you're an international curler, you've probably been to a lot of different places. What's the feedback been so far as Moose Jaw as a whole?
Very positive. It's interesting to know most teams are staying in different hotels throughout the city. One team in particular has rented a house. And in my role, and my wife's the director also, in her role, we come across the players regularly. And the real cool thing that you don't see when you see these events hosted awesomely on television is exactly what you're saying, the behind the scenes. And for the players to come in, obviously you respect they're here to win. They're here for competition, so you give them their space, but they're more than happy to just be regular people and show that they are regular people. They've done a lot of things in town, from going to various restaurants. The cooperation with getting things signed that are going to be legacies in the community, the players are always supportive and willing to do that. Obviously, you have to be respectful to pick the appropriate times. The feedback has been positive. The one thing I can probably leak out, which is a very common, very interesting thing, is we can't believe how much coffee the players drink throughout this event. It's bananas. My wife says, like, how do you guys drink on this evening draw and go home and sleep? And it's phenomenal. We go through a ton of coffee. So that's kind of the behind the scene fact that caught me a little bit off guard.
Well, if my math is correct, if Canada defeats Austria this afternoon, I believe they earn a bye directly into the semifinal, and they're doing that right now, leading 5-1. My quick beef about the event, 9 numbers. I was 9 numbers off on Wednesday's 50-50 draw. So just throwing, I know, you're telling me. But having said that, the way you have the souvenirs and the mementos set up, I think is phenomenal. And the jersey that Canada is wearing today is a darker jersey that we haven't seen before. Someone said that was a Moose Jaw inspired jersey with Northern Lights and something. Is there any truth to any of that?
Gosh, I would love to say it's Moose Jaw inspired, and perhaps it is, but I can't say it is for certain. But it's definitely the Northern Lights inspiration. Matter of fact, on that jersey, when we have our other kids program, which is called the Future Stars program, that's 52 kids that are paired up with each curling team. That is actually the jersey that these young elementary school kids and high school kids get to take home once they're paired up with the team, and they get the autographs, pictures, and that nature. So very cool jerseys. Glad you picked up on it and mentioned it, and the kids are certainly appreciative to go home with those.
A couple of things. I know when we rented a house in Moose Jaw, I don't know if we would have invited international guests in, and coffee wasn't the most drank beverage in the house. Times were different then. You know, curling was different. I know you're busy. You got to have your eyes on certain things at certain times. There's a lot going on. But when you have had a chance to watch some of the curling up close and live, it's one thing to see it on TV, but it's a whole other thing when you're only feet away from seeing how good these guys are.
Absolutely. On that note, one of the things that just jumps out, and I'm a recreational curler. I have been my whole life, and when you see these people in person and you watch them slide out at the broom on target, that's what jumps out at me. They're so accurate right from when they line up in the act and they position themselves for the shot, and once they engage in the delivery, I could only wish that I could slide out that directly and be focused on the broom even before they even release the rock. So that's something that's in person that you're able to see that sometimes you don't have that opportunity on television as clearly as you do on in person.
Well, the biggest question that I was asked today, and I know that Ben Hebert addressed it with his friends and family, telling them they're sold out for tonight. Don't even ask me anymore. The tickets are gone. What is the ticket situation for the weekend? Can I still get tickets?
You better hurry. We meet almost daily with the Curl Canada folks, and they're excellent to give our local committee and our local leaders here updates. We are totally sold out for tonight. There is a few tickets left for the upcoming games, but they're going extremely quickly. So we fully anticipate that we will be entirely sold out in the very, very near future. I can't give you exact numbers. I simply don't have them, but I know that ticket sales have been going extremely well, so we're very pleased with that.
I heard Heather Eby on the radio the other day with Cody and Gloria, and I think one of the neatest things that you guys have decided to do, and I don't know if it was, a conscious decision, but to come down to the patch, there's no charge. So it's one thing to get in, and there's only X amount of tickets to watch the curling, but to come and be part of it, because that's the social aspect. And hey, the game's only so long, but the patch can go forever. Well, till last call. What's it been like in there? Because that's where the party is. Once you're off the ice to the patch, here we go. It's time for everybody to love curling.
That's easy. I'll give you a one-word answer: fun.
Nice.
It's a lot of fun. And the other thing that's really neat with the patch is the up close and personal segment. And what that is each team will have the opportunity to go to the patch. I shouldn't say each team. The majority of teams will have the opportunity to go to the patch, and Stu, the Curl Canada host, interviews them, and the crowd can become engaged, asking whatever questions they feel. And that's really revealing, and we appreciate the players being very engaging, revealing, and honest and forthright. For example, I've been a curling fan forever. I didn't realize that with Sweden and the Edin team that Mr. Edin didn't start curling till he was 15 years old. That kind of caught me off guard, and the other members on the team weren't much earlier. So just some little facts and trivia and personal stuff that they share is really interesting, and it just brings the fans and the people, anyone who appreciates curling, it just brings them into the whole spirit of the game and the event. So that's really cool.
All right, I see that there's no chance we're going to revisit those 9 numbers from Wednesday night, but I guess maybe a broader question. When you look back at when you want people, whether it's the athletes, whether it's the people that have come, like, again, the Scots wearing the kilts down Main Street was so cool on Wednesday.
Yeah.
What do you want the legacy of this event to be? Because, again, there are so many kids that have had their eyes open to the sport and the opportunity that exists with it.
Well, exactly that. We want to expose the game and the camaraderie, the fun to the kids, because curling is a wonderful sport. I always refer to it as chess on ice, and a lot of people can certainly think the game, but it's a whole nother challenge to execute, and that's what these people here do on a regular basis with every shot. So just exposure to the game, and as far as the fan concept or the fan engagement, we want people to leave Moose Jaw saying that they had fun. And it's such a simple word, but really that's what it comes down to. We're proud to be ambassadors for the city. Our volunteerism is unbelievable. We had a meeting with the leadership group here, and once we got together, as opposed to Zooming all the time, and we're actually in the building, and we learned what everyone's tasks are and the responsibilities they had. We are so deep with experienced individuals who have done Scotties in 2015, who've done Scotties in 2020. One of the organizers in the 1983, I believe it was still called Scotties in '83. She actually came dressed on country night in the clothes that she wore as a volunteer in 1983. So that was pretty epic on so many fronts. So to see her, just embracing and engaging everyone in the building in that 1983 volunteer outfit was awesome. So all those things bundled together, we just want a wonderful experience for everybody, and we want people to come back, and we want to host this again.
Devon Oleniuk from the BKT World Men's Curling Championships. Couple of things as we wrap here. Brad Jacobs, not only does he, every time he wins, you feel very patriotic, Team Canada, but come on, man. Like, I don't know what your workout regimen is, but with the tight shirts and the gun show happening, you're making a lot of us feel bad at home on the couch that we really haven't done anything all winter. And we may need to step up our routine once the snow melts and, we can get outside and, get some bicep curls in and stuff. Because hands down, best in, he's winning the trophy for best in shape curler this year, 2025.
Well, and the beautiful thing about that is he's one of the oldest, if not definitely one of the oldest, perhaps even the oldest, and he's rocking it more than anybody. So it certainly switched my game plan on where I'm headed. So I've switched from the hard stuff and I went straight to the diet. So this is the effect that Mr. Jacobs is having on some of the people in the building.
All right, it's a new trend. It could go viral, as the kids say. All right, Devon, we'll let you get back to it. It's the World Men's Curling Championships. With a win this afternoon, Canada can get themselves to the semifinal, and then the semifinal Saturday. And then I think, if I saw the schedule correctly, the final would be 3:00 on Sunday afternoon, if that's correct. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Who are we thinking? Okay, because let's say today they're playing Austria. They'll play USA tonight. Who to them? Is it Scotland again? Is that who you like? If they get through, like, who are we?
Scotland now, China, will be tough.
Yeah.
Switzerland has been their kryptonite all year long. And last night was the first time this season that the Canadians had beat that Swiss team. So I don't know if they're past that or not. The Italians, they should be so much better than what they are. And that one surprises me. But yeah, I would suggest that Scotland are going to be the guys that are going to end up pushing Canada, whether that be in a semifinal or a final.
I'm glad, I'll say this because we're 9-1. I'm glad we lost earlier in the week. Oh, yeah. I would not want to see us 10-0 right now and like go through. And if we ended up 12-0, no, that because you'd pick a wrong time to lose a game. Because it's funny, after they lost, they came back and they looked focused and regrouped and ready to go. And it's funny, they're just curling so well. And Jacobs is just what's his percentage? Is it still like 94, 95? Like, he is dialed in. That's an understatement.
Yeah, he's well over 90. That is something else. And he was talking the other day about how he knows that he's made shots right when the rock leaves his hand, which is unprecedented when it comes to confidence. And right now, I'm with you. If you believe in omens and stuff, go back to when Rachel Oman just won the World Championship. Who did she lose to in the round robin? Scotland was her first loss. So she bounced back, did okay. And again, I think that this team is just firing on all cylinders. And the one thing that I think is really cool to watch is Ben Hebert. He knows he's on the back nine of his career. Those are his words, right? But he's basically home. And the number of friends and family that he's got for this event in Moose Jaw is extraordinary. And the way he's playing is great. You can see how dialed in, how focused he is, how much he wants this. And that's not a departure from what he's done in the past, but it sure is neat to see up close and personal.
All right, we're going to take a break. Still to come on the show, Luc Mullinder joins us just after 5, Farhan Lalji just after 4. But up next, we got some local business to take care of. We're talking Moss Bank, and we need your help because there's something cool on the line if we all get together and pull on the rope, as somebody said earlier in the show, is go the same direction. This is the Sports Cage. We're streaming on YouTube at sportscage.com and on the radio, 620 CKRM. The TELUS Cup Western Regional Playdowns continue in Kenora, Ontario. Yesterday, the Regina Pat Canadians beat the Winnipeg Wild 5-1. Today, the Patsies are taking on the Kenora Thistles. That's a unique name. I don't know if I've ever heard of a sports team name named the Thistles, but they'll drop the puck tonight, 6:30. If you're watching, and what is it? It's Flow Hockey, correct? That's the website you can go if you want to watch this?
Yes, sir. That's the one. Yeah.
Alrighty. Okay, Dave. Moss Bank hockey arena. What's the scoop, and what do we got to do to show a little love to our friends in southern Saskatchewan?
Well, I want to send a shout out to all the volunteers in Mossbank. If you're not familiar with the community, it's about 50 kilometers south of Moose Jaw Highway 2 towards the American border. And fortunately for me, that was kind of home territory. Our farm wasn't far from there. And Mossbank over the years have done a number of fundraisers to make sure that they keep the community vibrant, right? Because we all know what happens in rural Saskatchewan. So they've held a lottery for years and years and years, upgraded their pool. They've been able to keep the rink going with some of those funds. And right now, they're in a competition called Growing Home with BASF. We tweeted it out earlier on our social media accounts about this competition, that it's an opportunity for you to go ahead and vote for Mossbank and what they're doing in the community. So they've become a finalist in Saskatchewan where they've earned themselves $25,000, a $25,000 grant. But if they win this competition, they can make enough money to replace their ice plant. So the 25 grand, of course, is going to go they're going to go a long way. But $250,000 can ensure the ice plant and the rink being viable for 25 years, because once you get a new ice plant, right, then it tends to last a while. So it's a big opportunity. I know the voting is on right now. Again, you can search Growing Home with BASF, and please stick up for Mossbank today, as, again, a good hometown with a lot of great volunteers out that way.
No, that is great. And we all know this, that the hockey rink and the hotel bar are the lifeblood of every small town in Saskatchewan. And when one or two of those or both of those go, well, then there's problems, right? So here's our chance to do our part.
Well, and if you talk about that, the first licensed establishment in Saskatchewan, so liquor license number 1, was issued just down the road from Mossbank, and I'm sure Colin Lovequist is smiling ear to ear because him and I have not frequented, that sounds way bad. We've been there before, the Ardill Bar. Now, I'm not even sure that it's open anymore, but the first liquor license in the province was granted to Ardill, Saskatchewan, just down the road from Mossbank. So there you go.
All righty. You know what? Do your part. You can check our socials at SportsCage on X. You can also vote on our 999 baseball challenge. Could you watch 9 innings of baseball, eat 9 hot dogs, and drink 9 beer? Yes, no, or maybe. I don't know, but I kind of like to try. We'll give you an update just after the top of the hour. Stand by. Farhan Lalji from TSN is coming up next. There's a new CFL commissioner. We'll ask him about that. This is the Sports Cage. We're streaming on YouTube at sportscage.com and on the radio, the home for local sports, 620 CKRM. If you're having a great Friday, hour number 2 of the show is underway. It's Maz here, filling in for Barney, along with the double C's, Colson and Curtis, running things at Century Studios. Lots of hockey this weekend in southern Saskatchewan. The Prairie Junior Hockey League final will continue tomorrow night. It'll be Game 3 in Fort Capel as Fort Knox takes on the Saskatoon Wesley's. Fort Knox up 2-0. We're going to talk to PJHL President Scott Blevins at around 5:30 this afternoon. All eyes are going to be on the game tonight. The Washington Capitals, Chicago Blackhawks. Ovi watches on, 3 away from setting the record. Wayne Gretzky and Gary Bettman will be at the United Center in Chicago. Can Ovi get it done tonight? And then it's over, or will this get dragged out? I know a couple weeks ago on the show we were talking about, I think he had about 8 or 9 goals, 14 games left. Could it happen? Was it going to be dragged out into next season? Now I'm thinking, not that Chicago's a pushover or that they're a garbage hockey team. Garbage more than a pushover, but it could happen tonight. Alexander Ovechkin could break Wayne Gretzky's record. And we don't know what kind of ceremony there would be. We know they're probably going to stop the game, bring everybody down on the ice, a little handshake, some pictures, and then boom, they'll eventually have to get back to play to do that. You've got Carolina, Detroit. There's only 3 games tonight. And then Minnesota, the New York Islanders. Double C's, if you want to come in on this. I'm not sure if you guys saw what Patrick Waugh said about Anthony Duclair the other day, but he called him terrible. He called him garbage. It was just it's a good thing we don't do that when it comes to employee reviews, because Patrick Waugh, as your boss, I don't think is a great guy. But what I want to talk about, Jamie Neugenbauer from the Notre Dame Hounds, we had him on in hour number 1, along with voice of the Riders, Dave Thomas. Are you guys as disturbed? I don't know what the proper terminology we should use. That Dave Thomas's nickname, Big Daddy Dave, was revealed on the show. Initial thoughts right away. Curtis, when you first heard Big Daddy Dave, what did you think?
I thought it was hilarious. And
okay.
I thought it was even more funny that Jamie just kept saying it over and over again.
I know. If you go back and listen to the interview, he just didn't throw it out once. I was like, what did he say? Like, he mentioned it 4 or 5 times. Big Daddy Dave. Big Daddy Dave. And now, that is never not going to be a thing when Dave Thomas is on the show. I'm sorry, but that's going to stick.
I'm not going to let that one be let down ever. It's every time I see Dave in the hallway, I'd be like, how's it going, Big Daddy?
Big Daddy Dave. Big Daddy Dave.
Yeah, that's definitely a nickname that was generated on a bus trip somewhere by some youngster.
Yeah. Or something happened somewhere late night in a hotel, like something, but that nickname was probably earned somehow. And I don't think that's going to be etched in my brain forever whenever we see Nuge, or when Dave comes on to be like, hey,
yeah.
BD,
I'm just
Big Daddy.
Wondering if we should be letting Luc Mullinder in on this later. Because,
maybe Luke knows.
Yeah, if he already knows, that's one thing. But if he doesn't, do we share it with him? I think we should.
Also, Dave let me in on a little secret off the air. He said, since Luke is going to be doing like a emceeing thing in Zennon Park, we have to ask him if he speaks French. No, that's what Dave gave me. Told me we got to ask him if he speaks French. So remind me later, Maz, when Luke is
sure.
on. But apparently
Luc
it's
Mullinder,
funny.
Color commentator for the Saskatchewan Roughriders right here on 620 CKRM, your home of Saskatchewan Roughrider football, will join us in about 1 hour's time. Is he in Zennon Park tonight, or it's an upcoming event?
Tomorrow.
Oh, he's in tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you probably want to make that a day trip. I don't know if you go up early. I don't know that there's a Four Seasons or a W hotel to stay in Zennon Park. It's a drive-in, drive-out situation. You're probably not going to drive home from Zennon Park after a sports dinner.
I don't know.
Yeah, no. If you've just joined the show on Twitter, we've got a poll up. It's the 999 baseball challenge. 9 innings of baseball where you eat 9 hot dogs and you drink 9 beer. Could you do it? Yes. No. Maybe you'd like to try. Nuge said he could. Dave was fence. I just don't drink enough. And depending the hot dog, and I'm not a huge hot dog person, but to me, a barbecued hot dog is the best. And I don't know that you're getting that at a game. You're probably going to get the steamed ones. Although we were at Circle K a few weeks ago with the kids getting Slurpees, and there was some hot dogs on the roller thing. And it was like the middle of the afternoon. I'm hungry, and I'm like, I don't normally eat hot dogs, but I was like, I could eat one of those hot dogs. Are you guys hot dog people? Like, I don't.
It was funny is when you pit out that Twitter poll today, I was kind of thinking about it. I was like, you know what? I could crush 9 brewski in 9 innings. To some people, that's the essence of going to a baseball game, you know? But 9 hot dogs? Oh, hot dogs are disgusting, man. Like, I would maybe get around 5 or 6, and then there's going to be some chunks blown somewhere. I don't think I could do it.
You would feel awful afterwards. Like, maybe you could. Colson? Hot dog situation? Yay or nay?
Hot dogs, like you said, depending on the hot dog. Barbecued, I could probably stomach through most of them. If it's just the steamed ones, no, I'd be done at about 4 or 5. I also don't drink enough just to do the beers. If you were talking to teenager Colson and it was 9 hot dogs and 9 sodas, oh, easy. I could eat way too much when I was a teenager.
Now, here's the other thing too: is it's in 2025. There's inflation. Could you imagine if you were paying ballpark prices for?
Goodness.
But let's just use, what it costs for like a beer or a hot dog at a Rider game. Let's say you're $8 ish a beer. Is that right? That's fair, right? It's like these aren't going to be happy hour prices. Okay, and a hot dog, so probably $6, $7, $8.
I'd go with 6. I think that's about it. But yeah,
Sure. And I know that some stadiums cost way more. Like, could you imagine just the financial investment? And then if you don't eat it,
yep.
and then do you get them all at the same time? Do you go back in between innings and try and get a fresh round? Like, logistically, this could be a nightmare.
Yeah, if you're getting them all at once, that's definitely going to hinder it, I would think, because having a cold hot dog and a warm beer, no.
Oof.
No.
Ugh, man. Not so much the 999 challenge. We'd mentioned that depending on the type of hot dog. I'm not one of those people that can go to Costco when it opens at 9 in the morning and eat a hot dog and drink a Diet Pepsi. When I do have a hot dog, it has to be in some sort of like window after 11 before you can't do early morning. All right, let's bring him in. He's from TSN. Say hello to Farhan Lalji.
It's time to get the inside story. TSN's Farhan Lalji on SportsCage is brought to you by the Cooperators. Time to get financially fit? Cooperators can build a plan that works for you. Cooperators, investing in your future together.
There's our guy. All right, Farhan, how are you? Big news this week. Stuart Johnston is the 15th commissioner of the Canadian Football League. Stuart was an executive at TSN. That's what we, as football fans, know. You work at TSN, but Bell Media is a giant company. It spans the country. To say, well, we work in the same company doesn't necessarily mean you know him. Do you know Stuart Johnston, or is he your boss? Have you interacted with him? What can you tell us about the new guy?
Yeah, Stu was definitely my boss, and he's shifted more to the Bell side, right, and manages all of the different content platforms. He's also been the president of TSN. He was gracious enough to attend my Canadian Football Hall of Fame induction at Grey Cup Week back in November. I've had a lot of conversations with him, one-on-one, beers at the table, a few different things like that, and I'm excited. I'm excited to. It's funny. Naylor and I were talking, and usually when these commissioners come in and they know the role we have and we get an opportunity to interact with them and get access to them. And, we're equal. Certainly they have a more important role in the CFL than we do, but they're not our bosses per se. Whereas we both have to now kind of shift, right? Hey, you're not our boss anymore, Stu. But I think he's going to be a fantastic hire for the CFL because it's been a long time. I can't even remember the last time that the league has had somebody that's come into the commissioner's chair with a real understanding of how the league works. And, they know the good, the bad, the flaws, all of it, and the potential of it. And, you've also got a guy that really, really understands television from a content standpoint, a brand standpoint, and where the industry is headed. So I just think he brings a collection of talents and skill sets that this position hasn't had arguably ever. I mean, Randy Ambrosie, who I have a lot of time and respect for, played in the league. But then there was, a 20 or 30-year gap, while he had a successful career on the finance side, but really wasn't involved in the league at all, right? So he could bring the passion of a player to it, but just kind of, that understanding. I just think from the TV side and where the industry is going and all of it, I think Stu is a home run hire for the CFL.
Now, where would this have come from? Would it have been an owner or a team president, or how would this have been weaved into the conversation? Because like you said, there's guys that understand a spreadsheet when it comes to business, but there's very few that can get where the world is at right now because the world has changed, especially in the landscape of media. Has he always kind of been a candidate in the running even before Randy Ambrosie, or how did this come to play?
Well, definitely didn't have an interest in this when Randy got hired. But, and quite honestly, I haven't had the conversation with Stu. We've had a couple of, text exchanges, but not where I've really gotten deep into the hiring process in terms of how they got here. Because I know for a while the league was delayed on this, right? I mean, they went through the process. Randy resigned and, I'm not going to say it was a forced resignation, but, there was a bit of a non-confident situation there. And So he decided to step back. And then it took a while for the league to really, really narrow in on what they wanted in a new commissioner. And I know it seems obvious, but one of the reasons I think things weren't where they needed to be with Randy is that they wanted to find somebody who could bring in more revenue. And Randy had some ideas, but they did, the global program and things like that. And they didn't necessarily come to fruition financially, even though some of those programs had a lot of positive. I mean, obviously, the Genius thing, there was some, coming in at the front, and now, how much revenue is there on the back end? We don't know yet. So I think that the league went through a couple of phases of this in terms of where they wanted to be from a hiring standpoint, really narrowing down what the key elements they were looking for. So it wasn't just somebody who could bring in revenue, but when all of a sudden, somebody probably went and said, "Hey, Stu, would you be interested?" Or maybe he comes to them and says, "I might be interested," and they take a look and say, "Really?" And then they look at the potential things he could bring, right? So I can't tell you the timing of all of that, but I know the league took a certain amount of time to really understand what they wanted from the commissioner.
All right. We traded some notes earlier, and I had said, if you had asked 5 CFL fans what the biggest issue is for the CFL, you may get 5 different answers from people. For you, him coming in as commissioner, what do you think is kind of top of the list as things that need to be addressed?
It's a good question, and you're right, because so often you talk to some people that have been long-time CFL fans, which generally equates to being older, and the first thing they come back and say is marketing, 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 and a lot of those people view marketing as billboards and newspaper ads and things like that, and marketing is significantly different now, and it might be happening, but it might pass them by because they're not necessarily looking at those platforms. So certainly, the biggest thing is can you find new viewers? Now, our numbers at TSN are really good, but I think that's a big thing. I mean, yes, the league wants to find more revenue, but I think you want sustainability, and how you find sustainability is to find new consumers, young consumers, people that can sustain their interest for the league for a long time. So, how do you want to position that? I think that's going to matter, but then also the broadcast industry, right? 2026 is when the TSN deal is up. So you've got a couple of years, and there's going to be an exclusive negotiating window, and Stu's going to know what TSN can pay. And he's going to know what it's worth to TSN, right? I mean, no one's hiding anything. You can't posture when you've just had the position that Stu has had. So, but just, are they going to find an additional broadcaster to come to the table and try to spread this out over multiple carriers? Are they going to have an online component, and, maybe some games are on, Amazon in Canada or whatever it happens to be, right? Like a streaming platform. So I don't know where it's headed in that regard. I'm sure TSN is going to be involved in a significant way, but it might not look exactly the same in 2026 as it did in 2024. So just identifying those trends and where it needs to go. So new viewers and, get I don't even want to call it the television deal, just the media deal figured out.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's bigger than that. And when you say, marketing, it's like, well, what are we going to do? Revive the yellow pages and buy a 2-page spread somewhere in the middle?
Yeah.
One of the things outside of Winnipeg, which seems to be sold out no matter what, stands are packed. But when you do watch the games on TV, pretty much elsewhere, there's open seats. Now, maybe Stuart Johnston said, listen, that model, we don't need to worry about fans in the stands because digitally we can do this with this application, this over here. It's not about people in parks anymore. To me, I still think it is. It is that experience because this, Farhan, when you go to a football game, it's infectious. It's like going to any other sporting event. There's no other feeling like it. And usually if you can get people to try, in person is different than watching on your phone on an app. Maybe that is going to be a priority, but I agree with you that the deal, it's more than just TV. One of the big things that I've found outside of TSN, and I'll call this out, I mean, the other basically sporting, property in the country is Rogers. They very rarely show CFL highlights or mention the CFL at all. And it is a big game, and I get it. If it is this company, that's this company here against this company here. But even if that gap could be bridged on a bigger level from executive to executive to even expose people to maybe you are just a Rogers Sportsnet person, and since they don't do heavy CFL, it doesn't come across. Those are some of the small things that I've looked for that even in our own country we can't necessarily get the coverage. I think it has to come from somewhere. Yeah. And I wonder if, if the teams think like, we got to be on every media outlet in our own country first, but how do you do that? Because they don't have to. Rogers doesn't have to do it. It's a TSN product.
No, they don't. But now Rogers is going to be the exclusive owner of the Argos, right? Because Rogers has bought out TSN. Rogers has bought out Bell on the MLSE side. So, and if Randy Ambrose is to be believed, they want to keep the property. So if that happens, it's going to behoove them to get a little bit more involved. From a league standpoint, I think you also want to control your own media. By that, I mean create your own content and try to find ways to get it out to people, because you don't necessarily need a traditional outlet to do that. But, you're right. It does matter, because there is a portion of the population that, sticks on that channel because they've got the national hockey games, right? Whereas, and probably more so in the West, because they've got exclusive regional deals with the Canucks, Oilers, and Flames, whereas TSN's also got regional deals across the rest of the country. So, I do think it matters, right? I mean, and if there was additional inventory, then maybe you look at that. And so, I think to me, had there been expansion, right? Had we been able to get to the 10th team, that means a 5th game a week. And maybe you can find that extra game and put it on a streaming platform or put it on another network, or do that so that network could try to get more invested. And they do a bit more at Grey Cup and during the playoffs, but that's not enough. We want them to care during the regular season when the Blue Jays are on, right? Whereas, you look on the TSN side, we're still going to show the Blue Jays and their highlights and cover them and have people that follow them around. And I get it's a bigger property than say the Argos, but that is part of it, right? I mean, you do have to find ways to get people beyond TSN viewers to have an interest in the Canadian Football League.
Well, I think one of the big things too, and maybe it's already a done deal and it's been in the works, the CFL needs to have an app. Like, it is 2025 and they had one.
It did a while ago, and they let it go.
Yeah, and then they let it go. But it's funny, how often we go to, you want to check something, you go to that app. Like that, I think, is number one for a lot of people, where you can just get, because I'm not just interested in rider stuff. Like, I want to know what's going on in Hamilton. Somebody got hurt at Toronto's practice today. What are the Lions doing? Neat and tidy. And yes, there are other sports apps, but having a CFL app, when it was working, was pretty handy. And those things will probably all get worked out in time. I want to ask you about this. The Riders make big news earlier this week. They signed Logan Ferland to a nice, hefty, full of money 2-year extension. When you saw that come across, what were your thoughts?
Well, look, I picked the Riders as my early preseason pick to finish first in the West, and a player like Logan Ferland and some stability only adds to that, right? And you get him and and they get Jamarcus Hardrick healthy. And, they've had a couple of really tough years on the injury front as it relates to their O-line. Logan Ferland's a really good player. Like, if they can keep these guys healthy all season, that means you probably have a good chance to keep Trevor Harris upright all season. And Trevor Harris healthy is a really good football player. So, it's certainly a good news story and local guy as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's no there. If you were writing the script of Saskatchewan boy does good, from where you start, you stay, and then you become one of the highest paid players on the team outside of a quarterback. When we talked to Durant the other day, he was all smiles. He said, "You know what? There's no better feeling as a quarterback when they start locking up O-linemen long term or whatever." And they, like you had said, Trevor Harris, and keeping Trevor Harris upright and untouched throughout the season, because I truly think if we can have, and I'm not sure to lead you to your prediction, if Trevor Harris could play a full season, like injury-free, imagine what the numbers could be, because if anything, he has battled injury. We've never got a chance to really see a Trevor Harris for a full 18.
If here, I'll get one step bolder. If Trevor Harris can play if Trevor Harris can play 17 games this year, 17, he'll win the MOP. He'll win the MOP.
Take that, Bo Levi Mitchell.
Sorry, Bo. Look, there's a lot of weapons on that team. The O-line is good. They made the right amount of additions. They didn't have to completely overhaul their roster. I thought they were a good team at the end of last year as it was. So, when you look at what else has happened in the West and what my expectations are, I think that Saskatchewan's going to be able to thread that needle if they can stay healthy.
The draft order was released yesterday, and I saw the Stampeders are picking 1, and then they're picking 8. Is there a consensus number 1 overall draft pick in the CFL. Like every team says, well, it's depending on need or whatever. But coming out of the combine, like, is there at least a 1-2 of like coveted guys?
I don't think so. No, I don't. Like, I mean, look, there's a handful of players. I saw a mock draft today that had Keelan White, the receiver from Montana, North Vancouver kid, going number 1 overall, and he could, right? Like, it really is a top-heavy draft, and like especially at a position like receiver. So, there's 2 to 3 offensive linemen that have a chance to start. I think after that, it's going to get thin. The depth positions are D-line and DB. And so that allows you to maybe pick some of those guys a little bit lower, because if you miss, there could be another one that falls to you. Whereas, the O-line groups and the receiver groups are really, really thin. So there's a chance, in my opinion, that one of those positions could wind up with the number 1 pick. So, is Eric Anderson, the offensive lineman, is he that guy? We didn't see enough at the combine, but we know he's a good youth sports player. Is he a number 1 overall pick? I don't know. So I think it just depends on the team. I think there's a widening of opinions, and they still got a month to figure it out.
Well, and I would love to know what's going on inside Dave Dickinson's head and in their scouting room, because Dave's not afraid to take a receiver. Dave's not afraid to go off the board if there's something that they think they see, and maybe no one else. What did the Stamps just do? But being loaded up with those 4 picks, that sets them up nicely. And I had said earlier on the show this week, not only for this year, the years to come, because if these pan out, these draft picks, and you think when they're that high, they should, like, this could really pay dividends down the road.
It could. Understand that the hit rate on first-round picks isn't as high as you'd think, right? Like guys that eventually make an all-star team or guys that sign a second contract with the same team. It's not what you think. And sometimes it's because our GMs get a little sloppy and they'll just take the NCAA guy because he's an NCAA guy, and it doesn't always work out, right? Even though their training where they are might be better, it still doesn't always fit the way you think. On top of that, when you have 4 picks, you can't draft 4 guys that you need to sign to play this year. It's not going to happen. Like 1 or 2 of those picks could be futures guys, which is why when you look at, people ask me, where do you think Curtis Rourke is going to get taken? I think Calgary is a good option, right? Because you've got a guy that might spend 2 to 3 years in the NFL and then might eventually circle and make his way back. And by that point, Vernon Adams is a bit later in his career, and, there might be a fit. So I could see something like that happening just because you don't want to take guys that are at a first or second round salary slot and have to fit all of them in under the cap in the first year. So don't be surprised if they wind up taking a future somewhere in there as well, if not 2.
Well, and there's also that when you have that many picks, you also have trade capital as well. All right, let's shift gears. It's slim, but it's still there. The hopes that the Vancouver Canucks could make the playoffs. But let's start with Rick Tocchet.
It's over.
No, it's not. No, I trust the mainstream media, Farhan. They said it is not over. Mathematically, still possible.
There's a player. Let me tell you a little story. There's a player that played for Vancouver in 2016. You know who he is. Popular guy I get along with really well. And I remember late in the season when the Canucks were playing out the string, we would ask him about, Game 7 mentality. You guys are down to your last life, and, everybody's going to, give this kind of effort. And then at the end of the year, he's like, why would you ask me that crap? Right? Because you knew we were out of it. We knew we were out of it. And I said, well, if I asked you about being out of it and playing out the string, you would have given me grief saying, no, we're going to keep fighting until it's over. And he looked at me and said, yeah, you're probably right. So they know they're done. But you wanted to talk about Tocchet.
Well, and here's the other thing. With everything, all the issues on the ice, Rick Tocchet's contract, he's a free agent at the end of the season or whatever. Philly doesn't have a coach. He played there. He was quite popular. Is Tocchet staying? Is he going? If he is staying in Vancouver, does he have all the leverage now to get a really nice, sizable deal? Because this year, I think he's put up with a lot and still managed to get some results out of a dysfunctional hockey team. I think that's fair to say. I don't think that's being uncharacteristic of the situation out in Van.
Yeah, look, the club has an option on his contract for next year. And there's been some reporting suggesting that the club just believes that he's their coach next year, period. And if they've got to play him, on the option that they're prepared to do that. Now, I don't know that Rick Tocchet's going to agree to that. So that doesn't mean that they've got to give him an extension, but he could just say, I'm not coaching, right? And he could go back to television. And he wouldn't coach in Philadelphia this year like that. So I think the Philadelphia thing, I get why people are drawing that line because he played there, but I don't see that happening. I think the Canucks are going to do everything they can to get him to an extension. We'll see if ownership wants to buck up for it, but I do believe this is going to be about more than money in term because the team that you took over is different than the team you currently have, right? You lose JT Miller, and Elias Pettersson is not the same player as he was 13 months ago. He had a 2-week run before his latest injury where he was playing better, not crazy good, but better than he had been for 13 months. And so do you think you can build on that and get the best of him again next year? Can he and Rick Tocchet coexist? I think those are kind of going to be the bigger questions along with money in terms. So I do think that even though the club has the contractual leverage, I think Rick Tocchet does have a level of leverage because everybody knows the Canucks want him back. There's fans in this market. It's divided because they were such a poor offensive team that sometimes the coach's system got blamed for that, which I think is naive. So I think the Canucks should bring Rick Tocchet back. I think they want to bring Rick Tocchet back, but it's going to come down to whether Rick Tocchet wants to be back unless he feels good about what Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin tell him are going to be the offseason changes, because this team needs some.
All right, and we'll wrap on this. Tonight in Chicago, Ovi watches on. They're playing the Blackhawks. Does Gary Bettman and Wayne Gretzky end up on the ice with a little ceremony? Can Ovi do it tonight?
No, look, I don't know that it happens tonight. I think it's going to take a couple of games. How interested are you? Like, I'm conflicted on this, right? Because, and I know the political stuff shouldn't matter, but, given Ovi's connection to the Russian president and what's going on with that country and Ukraine and all of that, like, I've always liked Ovi, but I don't feel good about it. And, we know what's going on, on the Gretzky side of it. So I know I'm talking to somebody in a different market, where there's different political sensitivities and things like that. So I'm curious because I'm not as excited as I once was. And I remember when Gretzky was coaching Phoenix, right? And it was early in Ovi's career. And I remember having a conversation with Gretzky about Ovi. And he said, if anybody's ever going to break my record, it's that guy, because I've never seen anybody who loves to score like that guy. Every time he scores, like, just look at the reaction. He is so hungry. Like, Gretzky called this shot like 15 years ago, that if anyone was going to break it, it was going to be him. But for me, as we know it's going to happen, and the year that Ovi's had, as impressive as at his age, I'm just a little less excited about it. Am I wrong to say that?
Once he got under 10 goals, I started caring. Now it's kind of neat, but I think once it's gone, it'll be gone, and let's get ready to go to the playoffs. All right. It's Farhan Lalji from TSN. We'll catch up with you next week. Farhan is brought to you by the Cooperators. It's time to get financially fit. Cooperators can build a plan that works for you, investing in your future together. The Cooperators. We'll take a break. When we come back, the Western Hockey League playoffs continue tonight. There are teams on the brink. And one team is already, no one's golfing yet. We know that, but they're home for the summer, should we say. The Sports Cage continues next. We're streaming on our YouTube channel at sportscage.com and on the radio at 620 CKRM. Clutch performer this afternoon. We chatted with Devon Oleniuk on hour 1, who is part of the BKT World Men's Curling Championship going on in Moose Jaw. And he had talked about how the crew of volunteers who have been hard at work for many weeks and months getting ready for this, and then everything that's happened since last Saturday, your Clutch performer, all the volunteers that are doing awesome work in Moose Jaw, and it is not done yet. Team Canada, Brad Jacobs, run their record to 10-1. They beat Austria earlier today, 8-2. Tonight, they will take on the U.S. They'd already secured a playoff spot. Double C's, correct? Now, with that win, Jacobs, Team Canada, they're automatically into the semifinals, correct?
I'm not sure. I'm trying to find that.
Yeah, I think that was our situation that we were in. That if we're into the semifinals, we're in the playoffs for sure, because we're 10-1, and with our game against the U.S. tonight, it would be great. Could you imagine if first place you're automatically in the final? Wouldn't that be whoever did up that tournament draw in our favor? Nice. Is it too late to change?
The one thing it does say here is the victory also secured a spot for Canada in the men's team discipline at the 2026 Winter Games. So that win clutches them a spot for the Olympics.
Yeah. You know what? I would love to know in the mind of a curler. Now, there's some people, especially in hockey, would you much rather win a Stanley Cup or a gold medal playing for your country in the Olympics? Some would say Olympics and lots would say Stanley Cup. Now, in curling, is a curling world championship worth more than an Olympic medal? I don't know. I think maybe the Olympic medal may weight more in curling because it's only every 4 years. I don't know. That's a tough one, right?
Yeah, I guess it depends. Like, ask a guy maybe like Sidney Crosby, you know? Like, he's got 3 Stanley Cups and he's got
a bunch of medals.
Yeah, and a bunch of medals. What do you think he valued the most? I feel like probably one of his favorite moments would have been the golden goal for sure.
Sure. I think, though, once you get your name on the Stanley Cup at least once, that box is checked and then all the pressure's off and then you can go do whatever you else. But if you're just constantly chasing and you never get that like you could end up like Jarome McGinley, who had a great career, and there's plenty of them. Joe Pavelski, there's a million guys that had outstanding NHL careers. Look at Keith Tkachuk, outstanding NHL career. And when you don't win a Stanley Cup, does that... I think in the hockey realm, it's the Stanley Cup. Maybe in the curling world, it's different. But Brad Jacobs. I want to go earlier this week on the show. It was mentioned, but then it got passed over. Because whenever we talk about stuff like birthdays, anniversaries, Barney usually brushes it off like it's no big deal. But Colson had mentioned, but I think it was back on Monday, that it's his wife's birthday and that he was very busy working on a plan for her birthday. I think was it today, Colson? Is it tomorrow? Like, how are the plans going? Are we like hours away from activating this? Like, what's happening? Because we didn't get a chance to cover it on Monday.
At this point, there is a chance she is listening. So
okay.
I cannot share any of those details, of course. Yes, it is her birthday today.
Okay.
So there are some plans that are happening tonight. There are some plans that are happening next week when some more family and friends are available. But that's really all I can say on it.
Sworn to secrecy.
Yeah.
It's nice. A 2-day birthday celebration. See, I love the fact that you're a newlywed, you're young, you're in love. Can I ask, how old is your wife?
I feel like that's a trick question, sharing a woman's age, right?
Well, no, if you ask, it's funny, when guys are talking to guys, it's one thing. Like, if you were to ask a woman in person, someone would be like, whoa, that's out of line. You don't ask a woman her age, but when we're talking, you don't have to share. But I appreciate it. My wife's birthday is on the 21st. And so I'm in that planning, because we kind of had the talk around Christmas of, instead of getting her a gift, she wanted something that was thoughtful. So then it took a while, but I think I found something thoughtful. Guys, and maybe you come to this show for sports, maybe you come for life advice. I don't necessarily know that we do a great job at either, but sometimes just going and buying something and it's a little expensive, that doesn't necessarily connect. Something thoughtful is way better. And that maybe doesn't mean it's worth a ton of money, but if there's a sentiment there, if they've ever mentioned that to you, trust me, it's 100 times louder than what they've told you.
Should we get a splitter made called Maz's marriage advice? What do you think?
Oh, yeah. So no, I don't know about that. That probably. Speaking of batting averages,
it's a full-on thing. Now you don't want to talk about it. You're like, oh, don't take my advice for it. You know.
Oh, yeah. Oof. I don't know. Oof. Yeah. Let's go back to Dave Thomas's uncomfortable nickname of Big Daddy. How about we change subjects there? I love it. I'm happily married. Last year, 15-year anniversary. It was great. Celebrated. We were in Hawaii. It was awesome. We went to Morton's Steakhouse, which is great, in the Ala Moana Mall. Nice. Prime rib sliders. Unbelievable. Happy hour, although with the exchange rate, I don't know, it wasn't all that happy. Anyways, yeah, what are we doing? We're taking a break here. Come back. National Lacrosse League action tonight. We'll jump into that, and the Western Hockey League playoffs continue. Many teams on the verge of elimination as round one rolls on. The Sports Cage continues on the voice of local sports here in Saskatchewan, 620 CKRM. Congratulations to everybody that won tickets to go check out the Saskatchewan Rush take on the Calgary Roughnecks tonight at Sask Place. It's not. I know it is Sask Place, SaskTel Center. Saskatchewan Rush and the Buffalo Bandits are tied in the National Lacrosse League for first place, both with 11-4 records. Playoffs are right around the corner. Also in action tonight, the Albany Firewolves are taking on the Vancouver Warriors. All right, the Western Hockey League playoffs continue. Round one, Swift Current, Medicine Hat. Tigers lead 3-1. And the Broncos have played the Tigers tough. But tonight it's Game 5, Medicine Hat. The Broncos are facing elimination. A lot of firepower on that Medicine Hat team. I don't know. Like the Gavin McKenna factor alone, he can change a game. Tonight, the Edmonton Oil Kings with a 3-1 lead taking on the PA Raiders. It's Game 5 back in PA. It's now or never. Because I don't like... PA's got to win 3 in a row, and I don't like... I don't know. Brandon Lethbridge, the Bus Hell series. Hurricanes are up 3-1. If you're Lethbridge, you're doing anything and everything you possibly can to wrap this thing up tonight so you do not have to get back on the bus and go back to... Well, they're not even playing in Brandon. They're in Verdun, Manitoba because of the Manitoba Winter Fair, which always takes over Brandon's building this time of year. Portland and Prince George, the Winterhawks are leading 3-1. Vancouver, Spokane, the Chiefs lead 3-1. Seattle and Everett, and then this is the most interesting series to me because Everett from start to finish was cruising. Best team in the league, without a doubt, all season long. But bitten by the injury bug. Landon DuPont, who should be the WHL Rookie of the Year, had to leave last game and had his arm in a sling and was up in the press box early in the game. The Thunderbirds are leading that series 2-1. And it should have been a cakewalk for Everett, but that's the thing. The regular season being one thing, playoffs being another. Tri-City Victoria is leading there 3-1. Saskatchewan Midget AAA Regina Pack Canadian champions are in Kenora taking on the Kenora Thistles tonight. It's the TELUS Cup regional playdowns. Yesterday, Regina beat the Winnipeg Wild 5-1. Taylor Tabashniak, outstanding. Next year, if he's playing for the Pats, something special there. Tonight, they're taking on the Thistles. What do we know about Kenora? Nothing. It's hard to get a scouting report on a midget AAA team from Kenora, Ontario. But here's the thing. Because there is no playoffs, it is the overall records to make it to the championship final on Sunday at 12:30 our time. Because tonight it's the Kenora Thistles, and then tomorrow the Thunder Bay Kings. Tomorrow's game starts 10:30 Saskatchewan time, and I know a lot of people are going to be watching on Flow Hockey. The winner of all this moves on to the TELUS Cup in Fraser Valley. That'll run April 21st through the 27th. All right, it's time to take a break. If you missed any part of the show, we've had Farhan Lalji, we've had Big Daddy Dave Thomas, JB Neugenbauer. You can always catch the podcast, and you can grab those at sportscage.com. On the way next, Saskatchewan Roughrider, color voice, Luc Mullinder joins the show on the home of the Saskatchewan Roughriders, 620 CKRM. Final hour of the show on this Friday. If you've missed any of it, you can always go back and catch the podcast, Apple, Spotify, or we've got them all neatly stacked at sportscage.com, or you can also watch the show. It's Maz in for Barney today. Busy weekend, Prairie Junior Hockey League. League final will continue tomorrow night. Game 3 in Fort Capel is Fort Knox. We'll take on the Saskatoon Wesleys. Fort Knox up 2-1. And at about a half hour's time, Scott Blevins, the president of the PJHL, will join the show. In just a couple of minutes, your color voice of the Saskatchewan Roughriders, Luc Mullinder, will join us. Our Twitter poll question today, baseball this season. It's gone viral. The 999 challenge. 9 innings of baseball, you eat 9 hot dogs, and you drink 9 beer. Now, if it was football, 4 quarters, 4 hot dogs, 4 beer, probably doable for a lot of people, but 9. And we were talking earlier in the show, like sometimes an inning of baseball can be like fast. You could be 10 pitches aside, and sometimes it's drawn out. So you kind of don't know. 9 innings of beer, 9 hot dogs, 9 innings of beer, 9 innings of baseball, 9 hot dogs, 9 beer. Vote yes, no, maybe, but you'd love to try on our X account at SportsCage. When you're there, give us a follow. Last hour, we had Farhan Lalji on, talking about Stuart Johnston becoming the 15th commissioner of the CFL. And Farhan said this is his old boss from TSN. And he thinks he's going to do an outstanding job because he's coming at it from a totally different angle and a totally different point of view. Yes, he's a successful business guy, but he's coming at it from the content side of TSN, where other commissioners have come at it that maybe they were ex-players and they had a business background, but they didn't understand necessarily the delivery methods, especially with the world we're living in today. Because media, even from when Randy Ambrosie took over as commissioner 7-8 years ago, how media has just changed and consumption. Like, what can't you not get on your phone? Oh, a CFL app, because they don't have one anymore. That got shut down a couple of years. So number one right there. The butts in seats matters anymore. Like, if Stuart Johnston has a way to be like, listen, this can all be done digitally where we can generate revenue, but you don't necessarily need people in the stands like you did at one time to get the new eyes, as everybody's talking about. They need, young people coming in. So it was a good chat. And he had some interesting things to say. All right, let's go out on the Western Pizza guest hotline. Let's bring him in. It's Luc Mullinder, your color voice of the Saskatchewan Roughriders. There's my man. Hey, how's it going?
How you doing, man?
We haven't chatted in a while. Good.
I know, it's been a minute.
Whoa. I know it's been a minute. Hey, we're 24 days away from a federal election, and I have to ask you, is your phone blown up with calls and texts, people wanting to do political surveys and stuff? Because mine sure is. Like, I got numbers coming in from all over the place, multiple times a day.
Really? No, yeah, I haven't. It hasn't really hit me like that. I think that maybe I do also a good job of just not answering calls that come across my cell phone that I don't know. So yeah. So I think that's probably just given up on me by now.
Well, it's funny because when I texted you last week about coming on the show, I'm like, you got back to me the next day, which is fine. We're adults. We have lives to live. I'm like, oh, good. Whew. There's Luke.
Yeah.
God, we're still cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so a couple of things. If you missed the first part of the show, Dave Thomas was on, and we have Jamie Neugenbauer on from Notre Dame, and he started calling Dave Big Daddy Dave. And he mentioned Big Daddy Dave like 4 times in this interview. Did you know that Dave's nickname apparently is Big Daddy Dave Thomas?
Look, Maz, A, I did not know that. And B, I can safely confirm to you that I will never in my life refer to another man as Big Daddy anything. So, that's
I'm going to say
I
was a little taken back. The first time he said it, I was like, did he just call Dave Big Daddy? And then he said it 2 or 3 more times. And even the double C's, Colson and Curtis, were like, yeah, we heard that too. So maybe when you guys are on the road, it's a long flight somewhere, maybe you get backstory. I'm not going to ask. I feel uncomfortable.
I don't even want to know. I don't want to know the backstory to that. I'm not interested in the backstory to that.
Okay. Tomorrow night, you're in Zennon Park at a sports dinner. Is that it?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. I you know what? It's funny. I was very humbled to be invited out to chat at Zennon Park, but I've heard a lot about it, and Dave said a lot of great things about it. So, anytime you can get out into Saskatchewan, I spend obviously a lot of time in the centers, Saskatchewan, Regina, Saskatoon, and some of the other larger towns, but very rarely do I get to travel into rural Saskatchewan, and I love touching base with Rider Nation in our rural area. So I'm excited about it. And you know what? I get to hang with a couple champions in another sport. So it should be a good evening. And it's always an added bonus when you are able to raise some funds.
Okay, that's good. Dave did want to get us to ask you if you speak French. We don't know the meaning behind this, but apparently it's an inside joke or something. I don't know. Dave wanted to know.
Well, I know enough French to know if someone's talking junk about me.
Okay.
So I think that I would be comfortable identifying if someone was talking a bunch of crap. But other than that, I'm one of those guys who I can understand it, but I can't have the conversation behind it. So.
All right. So tomorrow night, if you're going to be who else is with you at this sports dinner in Zennon Park?
I'm not sure. I know just Dave Thomas and then two NHL players. I think they're obviously a little bit younger than I am. I think they're just starting out in their NHL careers. But I'm excited to meet them. I don't have it right here in front of me. I forgot their names. But obviously hockey is such a major part of this province as well, right? So it's always good to be able to mingle around guys that have different experiences in life, right? Just because the sports are two different sports and they really sort of fly in two different planes as well.
All right. Stuart Johnston named the 15th commissioner of the CFL earlier this week. Stuart was an executive at TSN. He knows the league inside and out. Your thoughts?
My thoughts are obviously having a TSN guy there secures the TSN contract probably, right, for the next few years. And that's something that as much as you talk about developing new streams of revenue for the league, you also have to spend a fair amount of time ensuring that the existing stream of revenue remains as well, right? So hopefully that will solidify the relationship with TSN moving forward. I heard the sort of back end of some of the comments that you were making about TSN thinking that he's a great fit for the league. I'm curious to see, obviously, this is a guy that comes from a world where they are just beginning to figure out how the rest of these digital platforms fit into the strategies when it relates to getting sports into in front of the viewer, right? It's not just the Canadian Football League that needs to reconfigure or reimagine the way sports content is viewed. It's the NHL, it's the NBA. So again, the problem with the CFL, though, is that while we're trying to reimagine what the next phase of viewership looks like in sports, the CFL is one of the only models that still relies on that butts in seats revenue aspect. So he's got a big job. He's going to have to be extremely political. You have to be able to navigate the nuances of the different ownership models in the league. So he's gonna have to understand that. He's gonna have to bring people together in terms of the CFLPA, in terms of the referees, the team owners. So it's a massive job, but it sounds like he can do it, and it sounds like he's prepared. So let's just get behind him. I think that one of the things that the CFL needs to do is whenever you have a leadership change like this, you've got to get behind the guy that's involved in it, right? He needs our support, and hopefully he can bring us into this next phase that I think we've been talking about entering for the last few years, or surely since we've left COVID. Right, I'm excited about it. I'm excited to obviously meet him at some point, and I know that everybody is. So, again, I think it's about embracing him and then being open. We've got to be open to new ideas as a league, right? Because again, you were talking about on the back end of your thing about him is like, yeah, you're right. Like we have a butts and seats revenue model, right? And, does Canada have the capacity, Maz, to create a gambling model the size, and that's as sustainable as the ones in America, right, around the NBA and the NFL? The answer to that, to the capacity-wise, is probably not. So you have to take things that you see are working in other spots, and then you have to kind of take what you actually have when it comes to the Canadian Football League and its capacity, just as a country, and you have to find the middle ground, because you're never going to have the capacity you do in the States without a sheer population, right? But you do have to figure out the things that make those models successful and then apply them into the Canadian Football League.
Color analyst Luc Mullinder joins us on the Western Pizza Guest Hotline here on the Sports Cage. Now, with Stuart Johnston coming from TSN, here's the first thing I'd like to see them do, is from a TV tech standpoint. All right? The way that they shoot the Grey Cup and the playoff games, Spider Cam at every game, more cameras. The NFL has had goalpost and first down cameras now for years. Those are the kinds of things as a fan. I became a fan of NASCAR because the way that TV shoots it and has you right there in the cockpit when you need to be, and with the cameras and the angles, and we've seen it. And if that means allotting more budget, like I get it. If the spider can't, it's funny. The broadcast booth where you guys are is right next to the TSN booth. And right next to you, when the money is there for that game, are the spider cam guys. But unless it's the playoffs, spider cam's not there. All right. No. Spider cam at every game. So, and when we say spider cam, that's the one that is hanging over the field and works its way back and forth and is all on cables. It enhances the viewer experience.
Totally.
The goalpost cameras, they've been using those in the NFL for years. All right. It's probably technology you can buy. It just costs. First down, shooting the game better, making the game more appealing. I would say that's probably, if he's, like you had said, he's going to have a lot of hurdles. This job is like being a politician. Like you've got all these different, something small like this is in his wheelhouse. If this is just a matter of money and camera and technology, well, that's an easy check mark. I would start there and start stacking wins that way.
Yeah, you always have to take the low-hanging fruit right away, right? But I agree with you. I think that we do have some capacity to improve the way the game is viewed. But again, we can't sit here and act like the Canadian Football League is just flush with cash, right? To where they can make an injection of significant value in terms of their, but like right now, I think that one of the reasons why that spider cam, is only at the bigger games is because, I mean, we probably only have one or two of them, right? Like you would need one in every single stadium, right? And that not just that, now you have to set the infrastructure up and you have to staff it, and you have to be able to staff it properly, right? So I agree with you. I agree, do we have more? I always think that if we're as reliant as we are on the instant replay system, I've always felt like we needed to invest in more cameras on the field as well. But again, all of that infrastructure comes with a cost, right? And if you're a league where your revenue is a little bit lower, right? If this is the NFL, they're just like, hey, man, we need to throw $100 million at digital cameras in the shoes of the players, right? They're like, oh, okay. Search your pockets, boys. You know what I mean? Like someone just throw it on the table, and that's not the Canadian Football League's standing. And I do think that one of the other pieces is I think that the teams are as aligned as they are in terms of building the game. I think because of the different ownership models of each team, I think that there is some conflict that would come up around, okay, just where do we make our investments initially, right? And knowing that we want to grow the game, but also understanding that there are other teams that have priorities as well, right? So it's going to be interesting. But you said it right off the bat, man. He's going to have to be extremely astute when it comes to navigating the politics of the governors, of the owners, and just where we are now as a league. That's why, I remember they both, like, sorry, Maz, I cut you off. I remember when they automatically raised the salary cap, right? When they found that they had done well and right. And I understood that, hey, yeah, great. Like the players are potentially going to get more money because there's more money around. But I would have really liked to see, and maybe they did this and it was just shot down, or maybe that this just isn't the process. But in my mind, when you're a league that's really trying to develop, if you realize that you're doing a lot better in terms of financials and that you can actually contribute to more money to each team, I would have liked to see just a pause on that and say, hey, wait, we can redo this bargaining agreement, guys, based on the more cash we have, or like, what does it look like if we take some of that money and invest it and inject it into actual league viewership, right? And the infrastructure you're talking about. So again, I do think you're going to have to be creative with the ways that you operate just in general as that league.
Logan Ferland signs a 2-year extension, which will keep him in green and white through 2027. Big money as well. Good Canadian offensive linemen are hard to find, and they got a gem in Ferland. This is a no-brainer. Like, this is just JO, just box checked. Let's get this done. Next, move on. Let's move on. I think it's just a great sign showing the club is willing to long-term with guys, because They're trying to build something special here, which is great because before guys would come, they'd honor their contract, but then they leave, they're gone, they're all of that, where there wasn't necessarily that stickiness to Rider Nation, where now we're starting to see these extensions come out, which I think only breeds for everybody else that is coming into Rider Nation that this is a place to be.
You have to remember where J.O. was in his career with the Saskatchewan Roughriders, right? He came over from the Argos, and he obviously, when he started out as a center here with the Saskatchewan Roughriders, there wasn't that immediate success, right? Like, he was part of a building, and he was the building block. He was the core, one of our core leaders, but he was our core leader from like really early on and throughout that point that is coined essentially the decade of decadence, right? Where the Riders were going to Grey Cups. We won in 2007. You know, we were one of the better teams all the way through. We won another one in 2013. Probably would have won another one in 2004. But all throughout that phase, J.O. was our leader, right? Some of it in the football operations side, but the majority of it on the field. And one of the things that J.O. understood and understands now is that you win with the trenches, but more importantly, J.O. was part of offensive lines that were solidified, that stayed together, that were the core group of guys also in the locker room. And I don't think there's anybody better, in the league right now than to build around than a guy like Logan Ferland. He is a fantastic football player. He's an even better person, and man, he's just a work hard dude. You want those lunch pail hard hat guys in your locker room, and when they're leading the team, you're going to be set up for incredible success. So I think that it was a contract that was well earned, and I was glad to see that he was getting paid as one of the higher guys in the league because he deserves it. And he was my offensive lineman of the year without a doubt. As many times as they moved him around and didn't have a drop off everywhere they put him, just proved how good he was. And I understand that, the winner of the O-line, he's an incredible player too. But I thought Logan Ferland was the O-lineman of the year this year, and I expect him to be the O-line of the year candidate for the Riders and for the West again. I think he's that good, and I think that he's got a bright, bright future. He's a Gene Mikowski guy potentially. Right, and he's a guy that can play for a decade or so, and hopefully at the end of his career, you're talking about him as a Hall of Famer, but more importantly, you're talking about him as a multi-time Grey Cup champion, because that's what'll work out for the Green and White.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and that's the next step. I mean, 2013, hey, it was great, but we can't live in the past. They were going on 12 years since the last Grey Cup, and now that is the next building block today. Aaron Patrick is signed. He'll be at training camp. Aaron Patrick is a 6'4", 245-pound pass rusher. Spent some time with the Jacksonville Jaguars and then the Denver Broncos. Released in 2023 with an injury claim. I don't think he played football in 24. Do you know anything about this, Aaron? Yeah, anything about this Aaron Patrick that they've signed to?
No, I don't know. I don't know much about Aaron Patrick. I know that the description of pass rusher is accurate, and I think that he's got the ability to be successful. But again, yeah, you're right. He had some injury issues that took him out, I think, and I can't remember how much football, if any, he played in 2004. But again, it fits the sort of the need, right, for Jeremy O'Day and then the Saskatchewan Roughriders heading into training camp. They've got to identify where their pass rushers are coming from, right, and especially on the other side of Malik Carney, you're not going to have Brian Cox Jr. obviously this year, right, and he was exceptional, and a couple of the other guys they've left that were depth guys. So you've got to find another guy. I know we got Shane Ray in there as well, but again, he's a little bit older, and he also had significant sort of injury struggles, right? So I'm glad at this point you've just got to make sure A, your camp roster is filled with bodies, obviously, but B, they're filled with bodies that you actually need to identify some opportunities, because there are some gaps right now on that roster.
CFL draft order released yesterday. Stamps picking number 1, and then with the BC picks, they'll pick again at 8. We had Randy Chevrier on the show last week, and we asked him about Jake Mayer, and he said that he got a chance to know Jake during the COVID years, and talked about what a great guy he is just as a person, but then as a teammate, and that sometimes the spotlight in Calgary got to him, the shoes he had to fill, when at times that's what brought him down. And he thinks him coming in as potentially a number 2, not a lot of pressure, the Trevor, it's the perfect situation. And he thinks that he can do great things. And he thought we're incredibly lucky that a Jake Mayer on a a team-friendly contract could really do that up. And then we get the Tommy Stevens, because we were talking about Stampeders East, basically, in Rider training camp. Do you kind of see that in Mayer as well? Because when he's on, he was great. But sometimes when the pressure was on, that's when it kind of fell apart, and he lost weapons, injuries, and it fell. You've probably played with guys like that sometimes when there's no pressure at all, they excel because it's house money.
Well, I'm actually it's hard to imagine a situation here that Jake Mayer is going to walk into that doesn't involve pressure. I mean, this is Rider Nation. If Jake Mayer thought the pressure was tough in Calgary,
I know. I know.
Trust me, it's 3 times that, if more, in Saskatchewan. But I think that sometimes change is good for people, right? Sometimes they need to change the scenery. I think that Saskatchewan, one of the key sort of things about Saskatchewan is the way that players, because it's especially Regina is such a small town, right? Like you kind of end up spending the majority of the time around your teammates. You can spread out in places like Toronto and Calgary, right? And you might not see your guys until practice, but you end up hanging out with guys all the time here in Saskatchewan and Regina because it's such a fishbowl. So I think that it'll be good for him, but I don't see any scenario where he doesn't have any pressure, right? If he has to roll in a couple games for Trevor Harris, I mean, this is a team, you got to remember, this is a team that the expectation is going to be fairly high. They returned the majority of the core. They are a very good team on paper right now, and that team on paper was the same team that was in the West Final last year, right? So realistically, again, if you look at my last time here and the time before that, I was talking about them being, predicting them as the West representative in the Grey Cup. Realistically, that's kind of where you got to be in order to keep building, right? Because you were in the West Final last year. So any situation he's going to step into is going to feature some pressure. But I think the difference is that he's not the guy right off the bat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think he's going to have a little bit of time to slowly get into a routine with these guys, get to know Saskatchewan and the organization. And then when he is, I think that he's going to be in a situation where if he does have to fill time for Trevor Harris, he would have had time to sort of absorb and set his feet, right? If he was coming in here right away and he was your number one quarterback all the way through training camp, that would be a completely different situation. So you're right. I mean, he comes in, he's a guy that is going to be asked to just be a great teammate, and apparently he is. And again, it's he was the best backup available in the Canadian Football League this free agency. So there is going to be an opportunity. I'm excited to see him when he does get it.
Rider Nation, we do love our backup quarterbacks. There's always been that love affair.
Man,
There's always been that love affair. Speaking of quarterbacks, let's switch leagues. Joe Milton traded from the New England Patriots to the Dallas Cowboys. Does it even matter, Luke? The Dallas Cowboys. The season is how many months away, and I already am. I have an upset stomach thinking about the Cowboys and what this season's going to be. Like, Joe Milton's not going to make a difference. Let's be honest here.
Listen, as a Cowboys fan, I'm just glad Jerry actually did something like in the offseason. Like, I'm glad he did anything. I was surprised. I was like, oh man, Jerry actually, like, he's not on the boat. Look at that. He made a football transaction in the offseason. It's amazing. We might have life. I think Joe Milton's awesome. I thought he was a great draft pick the year before. I thought he was an absolute stud. He was just in a situation in New England where they had another young stud, right? I think that kid is, I really liked him when he was in college too. So, and by the way, Saskatchewan needs a backup, right? And the nice part about it is that New England traded him to the Cowboys because they wanted to do him a solid. So they actually told him sort of where his options were in terms of the teams that wanted to trade for him, and it worked for them that they sent him off to Dallas. And he probably knows, hey man, this is a quarterback in Dallas that is good when he's on top of his game, but has missed significant times the last 2 years years, though. I'm going to get some PT. I think Dallas Cowboys fans are pumped up. The problem is that he's going to come into the Cowboys, and we've got a number of questions along that offensive line, right? So is it going to be detrimental to your development, right? Are you going to be running for your life and snapping the ball and moving around earlier than you want to as a young quarterback? I mean, it's not as if New England had the greatest offensive line when he was in there, and he made some plays. So I think that Dallas Cowboys, we're excited just that Jerry actually is not dead, and we don't have to prod him with a stick. And B, we've got a young player that a lot of other people like as well.
When we had Doubles on Monday, we asked him about Trey Lance, backup quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, and if what Darian thought, could he make it in the CFL? And Darian thinks he is more suited to be a CFL starting quarterback than an NFL starting quarterback just because of the skill set that he has.
Yeah, right. I think that it's an athletic skill set. He's got a strong arm, right? And again, you look at the Canadian Football League, you look at the width of the field. Can you get the ball out with some velocity to the sides, right? Can you run as a quarterback? But again, I think that I do agree with Doubles that he could be a quarterback in the CFL. But again, I also revert back to you need to be a pocket passer at some stage to win a Grey Cup championship, right? Zach Caleros, I mean, even Nick Arbuckle, right? Like Nick Arbuckle, quarterback the Argos to a championship, and he's a pocket quarterback. You know what I mean? Like, you've got to be a guy who can navigate the pocket. So I agree with him. He's got such an amazing athletic, and that's what got him drafted so high in the first place, right? Was his athletic ceiling. It's just, you just look at the guy and you're like, man, this guy can do anything. He could be in the NBA if he wanted. You know what I mean? So, but we've seen guys like that. And unfortunately, they don't always work out, right? Casey Printers, before he went to the NFL, not necessarily when he came back, but Casey Printers was the same type of guy, right? But at the end of the day, the flaw of not being able to sit in the pocket and pass the ball with accuracy got to Casey Printers, right? So, I think that Trey Lance will always be probably, that athletic skill set is going to keep him employed as a backup. But again, that's not a bad thing in the NFL, right? Look at guys like Brian Hoyer, right? Like he's a Spartan,
Chase Daniel.
But dude, these guys are set for the rest of their lives. Their families are set for generations being a backup quarterback. So that's nothing to shake a stick at there, man. You still got to be an amazing athlete, an amazing football player to be in the 1% that is the NFL.
All right. It's Luc Mullinder, your color voice of the Saskatchewan Roughriders. There's Curtis.
Also, I just want to say it might not work out as well because he just signed a 1-year deal with the Chargers. So probably not get to the CFL.
Well, here's the thing, though, man. I mean, he'll probably bounce around, and again, I just, the CFL game is going to move on too. You know what I mean? The less you're on the field, the more someone else is on the field, right? So I think that it was good for the Riders to get him on their neg list, because if he had decided he wanted to continue his football career in a different league, then we would have had a chance to look at him first. You know what I mean? So I think that that's the approach you need to take in the Canadian Football League. If there's an athlete out there that hasn't necessarily worked out for whatever reason in the league, throw him on your neg list, give him a shot, and see if you can work with him.
All right. Luc, my friend, thanks for doing this. Safe travels to Zenon Park tomorrow night to the sports dinner, and we'll do this again. Say hi to Big Daddy on the trip tomorrow. Right?
Yeah, man. It was good to talk to you, man. We haven't connected in a while, and I will never refer to another man as such, and I especially won't with Dave.
All righty. All right, it's Luc Mullinder, your color voice of the Saskatchewan Roughriders on the SportsCage. We'll take a break. When we come back, we're going to shift gears. The Prairie Junior Hockey League, Junior B, the finals are on. Fort Knox and the Saskatoon Wesley's. We're going to chat with League President Scott Blevins next. This is the voice of the Saskatchewan Roughriders, 620 CKRM. The Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League playoffs start tonight. You've got Weyburn and Flin Flon and Yorkton and Melfort. For a little bit of an inside look, we had Jamie Neugenbauer, longtime voice of the Notre Dame Hounds, on the show in hour 1. If you want to go back and check out the podcast and get his thoughts on what he thinks is going to happen, well worth it if you're into it. And Benny Walchuk, our voice of the Yorkton Terriers, will be calling the game from Melfort tonight. There's also action in the Prairie Junior Hockey League this weekend. The playoffs continue tomorrow. The league final, Fort Knox and the Saskatoon Wesley's. It'll be game number 3 as it shifts to Fort Capel. Tomorrow night will be Game 7. We hoping to chat with Scott Blevins, president of the PJHL, here in just a couple of minutes. OV Watch is on in the National Hockey League. Oh, we've got Scott on the, well, let's bring him in. On the Western Pizza guest highlight, he is the president of the Prairie Junior Hockey League as we get set for Game 3 of the league final. Scott Blevins, welcome to the Sports Cage. Thanks for taking some time. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Not bad at all. Let's start here. Fort Knox and the Saskatoon Wesley's Game 3 goes tomorrow night in the Fort. Fort Knox has had an incredible season. What can you say about the quality of hockey across the league this year in the PJHL? Has it been some of the best that you've seen in your time as president?
Yeah, I would say so. It's a very competitive league. There's been lots of skilled players are showing up in different teams, and it makes it a really good product to watch, especially playoff time. It gets to be a little bit more heated and a little more on the line. So it's really good product.
When we had head coach Matt Scott of Fort Knox on a few weeks ago, we talked about Junior B is such an interesting league, and it always has been, because the stories of the players that play in the league, some of these guys could be playing, Western Hockey League. Some of them could be playing Saskatchewan Junior. Some of them choose to play Junior B. Is that a selling point of the league that, listen, depending where you may be in your hockey career or whatever, there's a spot for you? The square peg, round hole situation sometimes doesn't always work, but the talent is incredible. Like, some of these guys could be playing elsewhere, but they choose to play in the PJHL.
Yes, and it's a league where, I've always said it's a league where, life's first, hockey second. Other leagues like the Junior A League is hockey's first, right? So, some guys they want to get on with their life and get school going, or they have a great job lined up and they want to keep going with their job, but yet they still don't want to give up on hockey, especially junior hockey. So that seems to be an element for them where they can actually play in a competitive league and still, get out and have fun. And, when I played hockey for many years too, and it's a bug, and guys want to keep playing and they don't want to give up that competitive spirit.
Now, with the league final, Fort Knox and the Saskatoon Wesleys, Fort Knox has been a bit of a wagon all year. The Wesleys are down 2-0. If you're the West, if you're coaching the Wesley, if there's a pep talk tomorrow night in the dressing room before the game, Scott, what are you telling that team from Saskatoon? Because they're down 0-2, and you know that rink in Fort Capel is going to be packed. What's your message to the team tomorrow night?
Well, I think what happens is that Fort had a relatively straight line right to the final, right? They ended up sweeping. So when it comes to the Wesleys, they had a tough 7-game series coming into that, and then right into the series with Fort Knox. So they were competitive against each other all year. So I don't see that being any different tomorrow night.
Now, I assume are you going to be at the game tomorrow night in Fort? Because we got Game 7, or we got Game 3 tomorrow at 7, Game 4 Sunday at 3 in the Fort. It's just going to be packed house there. What do you see with these teams? And you see something like that, what it does to the community? Because I know when the buddies I had growing up with, they played Junior B, and I remember going to like a Saskatoon Royals game, and it was at the rink in Sutherland and Saskatoon. It was packed along the glass, and there's as many people as you could jam in or whatever. And just the atmosphere alone and what it does, because there's no better feeling than a packed rink on a Saturday night in a small town in Saskatchewan. That hasn't changed, has it? No, it definitely hasn't changed. And even Game 7 in Saskatoon, the rink was full, So, I expect, you see the smaller town rinks, and, we have new teams in the league like Prince Albert. This is their second year in, and, they had great fan support even all year. So I think it's
it's definitely a product that people like, and in small town communities, it gets to be something to do, but also it's a good product, and it's a good family event to go watch.
Scott Blevins, president of the Prairie Junior Hockey League, joins us on the Western Pizza Guest Hotline. Scott, little about you. How do you end up being president of a hockey league? I've always wondered about that.
Well, I applied, but my background has been a lot of hockey. I used to coach, minor hockey. I played, obviously. I was an official. I was involved in some scouting, and hockey's been in my family and in my blood, because I heard you mention about the SJHL, which my brother is the coach of the Mustangs. So they're on a roll the last 2 years. So hockey's been in my family for many, many years. So I just, unfortunately, I had to resign because I've got other commitments. It's more of a volunteer role. So this is my last year doing it, and hopefully maybe down the road when I have more time again, I can get back involved.
Are you happy, is the goal is always to leave it better than you found it? Do you think that in your time as president, you were able to nudge that forward, or sometimes it may be not the easiest goal to accomplish, but you're going to hopefully leave it a little better off than when you first took over?
I think so. I think there's a lot of great people involved in the league with each team, with each of our 11 teams, and we got a chance to expand maybe one more team coming up at our annual general meeting. So could be a 12-team league next year, which would make it that much better. Anytime you have a balanced divisions, it becomes a better product and better competitiveness without having to look at any crossovers or things like that in the playoffs. So I feel like with the people that are involved on each of the teams, and of course, when it comes to each team, they're the boss, right? So it's no different than the president. I mean, I take my direction from them and in our meetings and the management committee, and we look and we try to put the best product on the ice for the kids, the parents, and the fans.
Well, I think it's been an outstanding year, and tomorrow night it'll be Game 3 in Fort Capel. It's Fort Knox taking on the Saskatoon Wesleys in the Prairie Junior Hockey League final. Scott Blevins joining us on the Western Pizza Guest Hotline. We can't ask you for a prediction because you can't play favorites, but I bet you in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League we know who you're pulling for because you can play favorites all over there. So we're all Team Blevins on this show today. Thanks for taking some time. We appreciate it. All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to wrap. We're going to check our Twitter poll, the 999 challenge. If you haven't had a chance to vote yet, in baseball, this has gone viral since the start of the season. 9 innings of baseball. Could you eat 9 hot dogs and drink 9 beer? That could be a tough task for a lot of people. Maybe could be a piece of cake for others. We'll do that next, and we'll wrap the show. This is the Sports Cage, streaming on our YouTube channel at sportscage.com, and the home of local sports here in Saskatchewan, 620 CKRM. Final few minutes of the show here on this Friday afternoon. It's Maz in for Barney. Your weekend weather. Tonight, clear down to -12. Tomorrow, sunny and a high of -8. And Sunday, sunshine and a high of 7. Right now, it's 0 in Regina. Weather is for Linex Regina. Serious protection. Killer looks. 1865 McCarra Street. We mentioned this earlier. Ovi watch is on. Alexander Ovechkin needs 3 goals to break Wayne Gretzky's record. Tonight, they're in Chicago. If there's ever easy pickings, and here it is, he's got another one. There it is. Ovi. Who's that? Who, if he does get it tonight, whoever's playing goal for the Chicago Blackhawks, you will go down in infamy as the guy who gave up the Ovi record goal, and you will be in highlights forever. 2 away. So there's Ovi's wife and Wayne Gretzky, Gary Bettman in attendance in Chicago. No, they're actually in Washington, I think, aren't they? Yeah, they're in Washington tonight. Wayne's probably in the box having a vodka, watching this thing. Caps are up 1-0. Already, what are we doing? If we're It hasn't started yet. Somebody, Capital or on the Prairie Land Rentals text line, somebody wondering about, is there a score from the Pat C's game yet? No. Pat C's taking on the Kenora Thistles tonight. Face off 6:30. And if you're going to be watching that game, you can grab that on Flow Hockey. And World Men's Curling Championships from Moose Jaw earlier today. Team Canada beat Austria 8-2. They'll take on the U.S. tonight at 7. They're sitting with a record of, are we 10-1? Well, we've got a spot in the semifinals. Yeah, we're 10-1 and a spot in the semifinals. All right. That's it. We're done. All right. Thank you to Luc Mullinder, Big Daddy Dave Thomas, Jamie Neugenbauer, Scott Blevins, Farhan Lalji, and Devon Oleniuk. If you've missed any part of today's show, you can always go back and catch the podcast, Apple, Spotify, or if you want to watch what we've done, you can grab our YouTube channel. All you need to do is go to sportscage.com. And when you're there, don't forget to sign up for our daily email. You can get the headlines and scores right to your inbox every day as they happen. Have a great weekend. This is the Sports Cage on 620 CKRM.